I'm just going to say it's something that people struggle with is how do you overcome objections, right? I think some people are way better at thinking on their feet than others. And then there are those who literally, if they have an objection, they freeze and can't say anything, right? Like it's really hard for them to even do anything. So hopefully today's training is going to give you guys a little bit more insight on what do we actually do when we do get objections. So we are going to dive into this because I think this is going to be something that you guys need to understand is, believe it or not, I am a fan of people giving me objections. Objections actually mean that they're listening to you. If you think about it, right, the yes ma'am person might be going, uh-huh, 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 and they probably don't remember a single thing that you said. But if somebody gives me an objection, I'm like, hey, that actually means that they listened to what I said and they had a comment or something to say to what I was presenting. So understand that when people are giving feedback or objections, in most cases, I'm going to say look at that as a positive versus the person you're talking to that's sitting in front of you that just says yes, 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 yes. I would rather have somebody give me objections than somebody that just says yes the whole time. So if I can change your guys' way of thinking a little bit, understand that objections typically means that you're getting some type of buy-in from them. Even though they might have an objection, it means that they're listening. Okay. So what are some of the benefits of objection? So number one, it lets you know that your client is listening. We already said that. Number two, when somebody gives me an objection, it actually lets me understand what their needs are better. So if you're talking about a sales process and you're trying to sell something to them, when they give me an objection, it lets me know what they either do or they don't like so that I know where to go with my conversation. I would much rather know what they don't like than me just assuming that what I'm telling them, that they're listening to what I'm saying. Number three, we already talked about. If somebody says yes to everything, that typically indicates that there's a problem. They're just not going to tell you that. I guess I will share this. So the client that I just left that had the $200,000 job, he's got a plumber that's literally right across the street from where their shop is. And he's like, Nate, I am over there every week. I drop off donuts and all of them love me. He said they're super receptive. I asked him, how many jobs do you get? And he says, I haven't gotten a job yet. So how many of you guys have visited somebody where they all love you and you've never gotten a job from them? If you're visiting somebody and they all love you and you know they love you and you have not gotten a job, I'm going to say that you probably have not gotten down to the nitty gritty of where their real issue is or if they're using somebody else. And I would challenge all of you that you ruffle the feathers a little bit. So we want to get objections from people because that's the only way we're going to find out how can we actually get their business. It's really hard to get somebody's business if they're not willing to share stuff. Now, every once in a while, we run into the golden person who's like, yep, 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 yep. And they, sure enough, they do send you a job. But I'd say that those are far and few between in most cases, right? So, okay. So the last thing on here says, if it's an objection that you can't overcome, it allows you to terminate the deal versus wasting countless hours of your time with them. On the next slide here, it says objections don't mean no. So a lot of inexperienced sales reps I work with, they do think that an objection is a negative thing. They think that it's a no. And I will tell you in most cases, that is not the situation, right? It should be more of a positive buying sign when somebody does that. So some of the examples, objections typically indicate that the person doesn't fully understand the benefits of what you are offering. How many of you guys have gone and somebody tried to pitch you something, but you really just didn't know what it did, so you said no? There's been multiple things where I fully did not understand it. And because of that, I was just like, no. Like the other day, there's a SEO marketing company one of my clients uses. I'm typically not a fan of SEO, I'll make that really clear. And as I talked to my client, I was like, hey, I don't like SEO companies historically. It's not something that I like to do because they promise you the world and they never deliver. And for all of you that are owners that are on this call, you've probably felt that to some extent where you've paid lots of money and got no return. But as my client kept talking to me, he says, Nate, I can pull the numbers and I can actually show you the ROI. And he says, we're a 10x off of what we've spent versus what they've brought in. So where did my opinion go at that point? I was not a fan of it, but then he told me he's a 10x of what he's made off of it. Where does my opinion shift at that point in time? That's a great number, right? Who doesn't want a 10x multiplier off of their ad spend? So if you're going to spend $1,000 and you get 10 grand in return, all of us are going to do that. So by me understanding or by him explaining to me what the results were from this, I was like, okay, if they can really do that, and if they have done it for the last 3 months for you, keep using them, right? It's a no-brainer. But you have to know some of that stuff in order to obviously make a decision. Okay, so number 2, objections give you feedback to know what you need to change in your sales pitch. So if you guys are doing a pitch, right, and you go, let's see, I'm trying to think of an example here. Yeah, so a simple one, say, hey, our company motto is that we can be to any job within 90 minutes. And then your client goes, oh, you know what? We really need everybody to be there within an hour. Now, we're thinking a half hour. Anybody that's in this industry knows that that makes no difference whatsoever. The damage that is done is still the same, right? But if they tell you that, does that give you an opportunity to change your sales pitch down the road? Absolutely. It can be, hey, you know what? I totally agree with you. 60 minutes is super important. Can I ask you another question? Where are most of your clients located? Oh, most of them are located in Trenton, New Jersey. Oh, you know what? That's where most of our techs live. In that case, we can typically be to jobs within 60 minutes. So I'm glad that they told me 60 minutes, right? Because I think that's a pretty easy thing to overcome. As far as that goes, it's not a bad objection. It's a good objection. Now, I will tell you guys, sometimes I like to ask a question that I know is going to create an objection because sometimes I do want a little bit of kickback of an objection. Okay, I'll give you one. They're dealing with a situation where they need to hire a new office admin person. They're getting too busy. And my client says, hey, I want this office admin to kind of run my guys. So I want him to run the tax. I want him to run my project managers so that when they're not getting their paperwork done, that they can kind of bust their butt and say they're not doing it. And I said, okay, so you're going to post a job hiring for an office administrative assistant. And I asked him, I says, when's the last time you've hired an office administrative assistant that you think can actually manage technicians? Now, I already knew the answer, but I wanted to test him a little bit because what he was asking for, I felt was a bit much. An office admin person cannot run techs. They should not be running PMs. That's not their skill set, right? And he's like, well, okay, now that I think about it, he's like, I guess that person really cannot be running my crews. And I'm like, of course they can't be running your crews. That's not what you hired them for. That's not what the job position is. So we were able to come full circle. And I said, look, the job you need to hire for is something different than what you're telling me. And he agreed. But don't be afraid to ask a question that might challenge them a little bit in a good way so that hopefully you can get to where you need to as far as what your services are. So steps to overcoming objections. One of the biggest ones, and this is really hard for what I would call the true salespeople. Salespeople are terrible listeners. I could ask somebody their first name because I always ask them. I'm like, oh, what's your name? I guarantee you within the first second of me hearing their name, I didn't even listen to a single word that they said. I never, ever hear what they tell me, ever. Does anybody else ask for people's first name and it goes in one ear and out the other? And it's more of a formality. So it's something for me, I know that I have to work on because I don't listen, right? So one thing I would tell you guys is try not to interrupt people, but listen really, really, really well. While your prospect discloses their objections, listen to understand, not respond. Avoid interrupting while they are speaking. This can be very difficult, especially when they know you can answer their question. How many of you guys cut people off when they're talking? Or we want to say something because we know we've got something we want to tell them? Okay, Cameron, I think all of us probably do when we've got something really important we feel like we want to share, right? But refrain from talking too quickly, bite your tongue, listen, and then wait 1 to 2 seconds before you say something. Don't interrupt. Let them get their part through. Okay. The other big thing, and I don't know how many guys have ever done this, I do this actually quite a bit, is you actually repeat back what you hear from them. So it's a very powerful tool that I would tell everybody you need to do. So example would be, hey, so if I understand what you've just told me, you're basically saying that one of your biggest concerns is that you want technicians to show up and you want them to be in a uniform, you want them to communicate, and you want them to show up on time. Is that correct? Yes, that's what I want. Or, hey, based upon what you told me, your office really wants a 12-hour update on every job. Is that correct? Yes. Repeat back. Let them know that you're actually listening. And anytime that you repeat it back to them, it's driving the point home even stronger as to them selling themselves on what your services are, right? And I'm not going to go into the whole mental side of all of this, but there's plenty of psychology that indicates that a person can start to sell themselves based upon the questions that you ask them. And so as a salesperson, if you can get them and ask them questions that gets them selling themselves on why they need to use your services, you're going to have a much better chance of them using you at the end of the day.